really glad that you brought in Blasphemy Dialogues, which is an article written by Wilfred Watson, the co-author of Cliché to Archetype, from Cliché to Archetype, 1970. And it's his article about the effort to finally put the book together in the late 60s. They meet in 1968 to 69, and it's a key point in the relationship between Watson and McLuhan. He says, he gives an example of the style of dialogue they get into, which is a bit of a problem for Wilfred. He says, the polarization of these exchanges can hardly be missed, namely the cliché as active consciousness versus the cliché as fossilized psychic energy. And this is on page 202 of the article. And he says, this dramatic layout he calls stichomythia, stichomythia, the dramatic term, theatrical term for showing one person speaks, next person responds, next person, first person comes back. So this alternating dialogue, which happens a lot in Finneg's Wake. He says, true, the stichomythia I represented oversimplifies. The result of daily sessions of batting backwards and forwards ideas, hypotheses, and wild guesses about the nature of cliché was a blinding confusion of insights, each demanding to be reviewed one by one. Still, I wasn't in much doubt as to what I was after. I wanted to establish a cliché as a unit of awareness and to use it for analysis of the extensions of man, which, as I have just said, I saw as making up a large part of human consciousness, perhaps the only part of consciousness accessible to investigation. Okay, now he says, in this stichomythia he offers, he has himself saying the cliché is an active consciousness and active awareness. McLuhan, he has saying, but the cliché is a storage system, a storage battery. Then Wilfred says the cliché is probe. Then McLuhan responds, every time we employ cliché, we store up energy. Wilfred says the successful cliché is a successful probe. McLuhan responds, yes, the cliché is verbal coal, C-O-A-L, verbal oil, fossil fuel. Wilfred says the failed cliché is a failed probe. McLuhan says a great comic artist like James Joyce is a master at releasing the fossil energy of the cliché. Wilfred says, and if the cliché is an active consciousness, then the technologies are modes of awareness. McLuhan, for James Joyce, says, for James Joyce, the clichés of language make up a vast hydroelectric system. Wilfred responds, the cliché is a unit of consciousness. McLuhan responds, Joyce is Finneg's Wake as a guide to technology. Wilfred says the cliché is a unit of technology. So he had said the cliché is a unit of consciousness. McLuhan mentions Finneg's Wake, then Wilfred says the cliché is a unit of technology. What I find is that McLuhan's words are supporting what Wilfred's saying. And Wilfred does not have the range of perspective that includes McLuhan's words, and so he thinks that McLuhan's words are contradicting what he's saying. Did you notice that?
Yeah, in a certain sense, they just talk past each other. I think that's what one of the great sources of energy is. And I guess they're coming at it from, well, the same essential issue, just from different angles.
Okay, so Wilfred talks later about the envelope of technology swallowing up previous technologies, or technological cliches, the new ones swallowing up the older ones. And he talks about language not being entropic and falling apart like a machine. It's negatropic, never runs out of energy. It's the only medium that stays vital, while all the other passing technologies or non-linguistic media fall away eventually. I would say that he's noticing the tactile quality of language. It's very important to know that McLuhan called language, and that's not just verbal, it's the active interspeech between people when they're in each other's presence. That's tactile, so it includes body gesture, smell, movement, proprioception. All these things are going on, all the senses. That happens with speech. And McLuhan says that's tactile, because Wilfred is looking to define, to say a cliché is a unit of consciousness. He's looking to be definite, find a finish point. And he doesn't get that McLuhan is going to say, even McLuhan might intend it to be words that he thinks Wilfred are contradictory to his, but he wants to, McLuhan is showing how in the active conversation, you're going to have two parallel worlds going on, and that's not a problem unless you're trying to get to a particular point. And so he's purposely saying different things, but it's supporting what Wilford's saying. So it's like you're saying they talk past each other because they come at the same point from different words. It seems to me McLuhan is more aware of the tactile interface of language than Wilford is, at least in these dialogues. And he's missing the point that when McLuhan says the cliches of language for James Joyce make up a vast hydroelectric system, he doesn't know that Marshall agrees that this hydroelectric system is an act of consciousness, an act of awareness. And so the difference between the two keeps things going. It's the difference that makes the difference. Wilford doesn't get that. He's trying to match. Yet he accuses McLuhan of being stuck with some old definitions. I just found it very interesting to look at that dialogue the way I did. I didn't see that McLuhan was disagreeing with them. He just said, hey Wilford, if you don't include my words, then you don't really know what you mean, how cliche is an active consciousness. An active consciousness in a way goes in four directions: forward, retrieval, obsolescence, flip. It's McLuhan's including that, and he's calling it a storage system. And Wilford says it's a probe, like going forward. It's not a storage. Well, that's included in McLuhan's understanding of an active consciousness.